Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. I am your host, Jim Root, joined by the rest of the three-man weave crew, Ky McKeon and Matty Cox. Every Monday morning, we're going to be dropping a new BBOC episode talking all things betting in the world of college hoops. That's right. This week, we are talking Monday, December 30th, and Tuesday, New Year's Eve, the 31st. I know folks are probably looking forward to college football playoff, but there's plenty of basketball betting opportunities before then. So intermix this in your bowl season. I know Stuckey and the rest of the crew have you covered here on BBOC on the feed. So check those out as well if you're looking for your football best bet looks. But we are talking hoops today. Go through some key games of the week, power conferences and mid-majors, some takes on spots, some spreads that maybe aren't out yet, but at least where KenPom has them, we'll use that as the approximate estimate of where the spread will be and maybe give you some strike prices where we would bet it up to when the actual lines come out. Let's dive in, fellas. Let's get through all of our segments here. Quick overview of the week. Like I said, we've got New Year's Eve Tuesday, 30 games on Tuesday, 26 Monday, kind of even. Typically not going to see that kind of a breakdown in conference play, but that's what we got this week. But it's all ahead of the monster start of conference play on Saturday, boys. 137 lined games next Saturday. Whew. Really got to take a deep breath here as we look forward to that one. All right, let's get into Monday and Tuesday. We'll start with big games, the big games of the week. On Monday, we've got Cincinnati at Kansas State kicking off Big 12 play, and Iowa State at Colorado, now a Big 12 game with the Buffs joining up in the Big 12. Guys, we'll start with Cincinnati here. -5 on the road at Kansas State per Mr. Pomeroy. Big road win opportunity for Cincinnati. They're still kind of searching for some bigger wins to match the analytical numbers that they've amassed at this point. Got the big win over Dayton. They did beat Xavier in the crosstown shootout. But the Octagon of Doom is no joke, Mr. McKeon. You were there last season. Is K-State going to steal one at home, even though K-State's in a little bit of a slide?
Yes, K-State will absolutely steal one at home, Jim. I hope I get +5. Won't be +5, but I'll take down a +3 on K-State. I think this will be heavily bet towards the Wildcats. Conference play, we'll talk about it later. Good time to reset. K-State has certainly not lived up to expectations so far from the preseason. Still think this team has talent. The juice in that building is very, very, very real. And Cincy, yeah, true road game. Hot contest here. I think this is a perfect opportunity for K-State to get them. I think it's a great spot. I think the Wildcats win.
I'm really torn on this one, Jim. I look back at Cincy's, last season right there. They struggled in close games. They couldn't quite get over the hump in a lot of these road tilts. I kind of think that mentally that's sort of a motivator this year for this team, especially with Dan Skilling's back in the mix, looking healthier. I think we're getting the Cincinnati version that is closest to its whole. Although it's not like they're undervalued right now. I mean, they're still sitting at 21st in KenPom. Like they really have beaten teams they are supposed to by substantial margin. Let that Villanova one slip away, and we're kind of lucky to beat Xavier, frankly, in a close one at home. Again, they probably should have won by a little bit more in more convincing fashion. I want to lay it with Cincy. I'm all the way out on this K-State team. I'll be honest. I just don't know if I'm ready to. If Cincy has proven enough to me to lay points with them on the road in a Big 12 conference game. That's the long and short for me.
Yeah, I'm going to sit this one out. I see a little bit of kind of momentum for both sides. I think the spot's way better for K-State, as Ky illustrated. I kind of like the matchup more for Cincinnati. I think their interior defense, 7th in the country in 2-point percentage defense, with Ben Dago leading the charge. It's going to be tough for Kansas State to find ways to score. It's going to be a lot of Brendan Housen bombing over the top. And hey, he can make 8 threes in a game. It's possible, but I don't want to have to rely on that. Ky, I like your point about conference play, time to restart, renew your season. That's going to be our spotlight section later on. So we're going to circle some teams on Monday and Tuesday that have a similar opportunity to K-State, where they have disappointed so far in preseason expectations, but now starting league play, perhaps they start to revert to where they were expected to be because of just the new season and being able to hit that reset button. So nothing for me there. The other one, Iowa State at Colorado. The Cyclones, Big 12 favorite, right up there with Houston in the betting odds. Those two have actually kind of overtaken Kansas as the top two betting futures for the Big 12, just narrowly, not by a lot. But now they're laying 9 on the road. Elevation can be the ultimate equalizer. This was not a part of the Big 12 slate last year. Going to that elevation, I guess there was BYU, but Colorado does add another element to that. The Colorado Utah road trip. But Matt, Iowa State's winning with offense this year. Kind of surprising. The defense is no slouch. They're still forcing turnovers, and that could be huge against Colorado's kind of lack of ball handling. But this team can score. Does that give you enough comfort to lay almost double digits on the road with Iowa State?
No, not at altitude in the first early Big 12 road. Again, similar to my narrative with the Cincinnati first true Big 12 road game. You just can't confidently lay points with any of these teams, no matter if it's Iowa State, a team that looks basically invincible or close to it, versus a Colorado team that we saw their guards in Maui. We've seen them since. It's just not a lot going on there. Good inside game, but man, Iowa State's front line is pretty potent this season on defense too, not just offensively, Jim. I don't know, kind of know if the offensive identity shift this year. We'll see how that plays out in Big 12 play, right? I think last season we saw a subtle shift toward this, more balanced identity. This year it's really gone even farther. Does that help them kind of avoid scoring droughts? But then it also comes at the expense of their, dynamite defense, which is still awesome, but not as historically awesome as it was a couple of years ago. So I don't know how it's going to play out. Fascinating dynamic to see how it goes throughout Big 12 play, though.
Well, this one's weird, fellas, because remember, these teams played each other already. They played each other in Maui. Iowa State won by 20.
Right. Holy cow. Thank you.
Yes. Iowa State won by 28. I don't know. I guess that with the conference affiliation changing so quickly, Maui didn't really have a chance to switch out teams and avoid a conference matchup. But Iowa State took the first one handily, forced 18 turnovers, shot 73% inside the arc. Colorado could not score inside the arc. They shot well from three and from the free throw line. It didn't really matter. Iowa State blew them out. I'm not too scared of Colorado's altitude with this level of team. I mean, I do think they will play up compared to on the road, but against an elite title contending team like Iowa State, I think it's a bit less of a factor. I will probably sit this one out. I don't like to lay double digits on the road against Colorado, but certainly not in a hurry to take the Buffs.
Yeah, it's another spot versus matchup where I think it's just a little better home spot for Colorado, revenge maybe a little bit, but the matchup's just terrible. They start one guard, basically, one guy under 6'8", don't have much ball handling, and you're going against Iowa State. We saw what happened in the first matchup. As Ky said, 18 turnovers. I don't see why it's less than 15 this time around with Iowa State pressuring. That's a real problem. And yeah, that 2-point percentage dominance in that first meeting is really concerning when you're supposed to be, your calling card as Colorado is supposed to be your size, being able to score inside and take that away. We're not able to do that against Iowa State. So if anything, I would maybe hope some people bet the spot and get it lower, and I could lay 7 with Iowa State, but that's probably wishful thinking. They're too good to end up that low on the number. So we'll just have to wait and see there. On Tuesday, one big game to discuss. This is a Big East game here. St. John's at Creighton. The Red Storm have already won at Providence on a Zuby Ejiofor buzzer beater. Can they get a second road win early in Big East play? It's a decent matchup for them because Creighton's whole defense is designed to take away catch and shoot threes. They want to play drop coverage with Kalkbrenner, force you into that mid-range and not help off shooters. St. John's doesn't really want to shoot. They don't have a ton of shooters. So it sets up okay for them. You can get Kadari Richmond eating in the mid-range, get Ejiofor a little bit on the offensive glass. That matchup with him versus Kalkbrenner is going to be terrific. Ky, I just worry that the athleticism of St. John's in the backcourt is going to overwhelm Stephen Ashworth. And really, he's kind of the only ball handler. We had another great Jemiah Neal game last game. Jemiah Neal, 6 of 7 from 3. I just don't see it happening. I don't want to count on that. I actually lean towards the road team here.
I do too. You're right. I don't love the matchup on the offensive end, but I think St. John's can make up for their lack of shooting with offensive rebounding. Creighton does have Kalkbrenner, but St. John's offensive glass attack is so ridiculous from every single position, all the way down to point guard and off guard, with Richmond and Smith being a ridiculous rebounding tandem. RJ Lewis is an unstoppable force going to the rim. Creighton just doesn't have the personnel, and it's concerning to me. So Fedor Zujic gets eligible for Creighton. He plays 3 minutes in his debut against Villanova. I know you're trying to ease the guy in, but surely if he's going to be important to this team, you would have thought he would have gotten more minutes in that first game. Maybe it was because Neal was doing his once every 7 game heroic effort that he's due for. But I don't have a lot of faith in this Creighton team. St. John's defense is for real, especially on the turnover front. I lean towards the Johnnies in this one.
I was looking at the home road splits for Creighton last couple of years in conference play. I hate backing the East Coast Big East team going all the way out to Creighton in general. But how I think the the mitigating factor you guys brought up is the depth and the experience. And I think the matchup edge very clearly lies with the Johnnies. We heard Patino himself say that they are going to struggle this year against teams with more 4 and 5 out lineups, which is kind of interesting. I would have almost thought the opposite, but he's like, just the way that we prioritize protecting gaps defensively and the way that we attack on offense, that's actually our matchup kryptonite. When this you have a truly a 4 out 1 in, right, with Culk and his drop coverage that Jim talked about. So a lot of fascinating chess match angles here. I think this is a good live betting game. I think we see a lot of volatile in-game swings both directions here, whether it's maybe Creighton hitting getting a white hot streak from 3, or St. John's with their pressure getting some touchdown pick sixes off turnovers. Davion Smith has been back and playing really well recently. I know they had that stupid players suspension. I think he does matter a lot in this matchup, right? Just a dynamic speed demon that can get in the lane against a Creighton defense that can be kind of leaky at the guard spot.
Yeah, they're just not very athletic. They're not very fast. They lose Pop Isaacs there, and it really takes away their guard athleticism. I mean, they beat Villanova at home by 7, but it took shooting 14 of 25 from 3 for Creighton. Like, you can't rely on shooting over 50% to beat even decent teams. St. John's is better than Villanova in just about every facet. I definitely lean towards Johnny's here if it's kind of the short home or a short road favorite. 2 or less, yeah, I'll probably take it. I don't want to lay more than 3. If it's 3.5, I would not be taking the Red Storm. But if they give that kind of generous number right where KenPom has it, I'll jump in. As Ky said, the lack of impact by Zugic in his debut was eye-opening. I was like, oh, okay. I thought he was going to matter, and he clearly did not. Mid-major games. Santa Clara at San Francisco on Monday, and on Tuesday, Utah State at Nevada. So we go west for both of those. And then on Tuesday, also VCU at St. Bonaventure in the A10. Hit these a little quicker. Santa Clara and San Francisco, Ky, both have aspirations of being the number 2 team even in the WCC. St. Mary's looking a little bit vulnerable. Both these two have had some impressive stretches, particularly San Francisco in the non-conference. Do we think that either one of them is going to make a loud statement in this game? San Francisco -5 per KenPom.
You know what? I like Santa Clara if that's going to be the line. 2 reasons. I think Santa Clara, number 1, is playing a lot better than when they went through a little lull, we'll say, after that first game against SLU. I think 5 straight covers for the Bronx, and this is a team that we expect to be very good this season. On the flip side, San Francisco, since Newberry went out against Loyola, 0-2 against the spread. It was an impressive effort getting back in the game against Bradley. Bradley dominated that entire game. Then they followed that up with barely getting by Montana. So I just don't think it's quite the same strength of team. The market will probably bat that down a little bit, but I'm looking at Santa Clara here. You mentioned it, 2 teams with huge size, very, very talented squads. Should be a very good game, but I lean towards Santa Clara, Matthew.
Yeah, I know the Mahi injury is pretty notable here for Santa Clara. Stud JUCO guy who, frankly, was off my radar because of how much depth they had coming in this year. But I think he matters, right? Did not play against South Dakota, could be precautionary, but keep an eye on him. I don't think I would back. I think he's a key matchup against San Francisco's very positionless type wing orientation that's made them so successful. So just something to note there.
Yep, agreed. I probably would look at the over a little bit here without Newberry. I think he's really important to San Francisco's defense, and that could show up here against a team that can kind of score inside and out the way San Francisco can. Tempo is your big concern there. Montana ended up slowing it down. That game didn't get up and down. So I would take a peek at that. But yeah, again, probably not a huge advantage if both Mahi and Newberry are out. I think if you get one of them in and the other out, then I might actually look to back the healthier team. But that's just something you got to keep an eye on as you get closer to game time. We're gonna have more bets later on in the show here, folks. Don't worry. Then Tuesday, Utah State headed to Nevada in Mountain West play. Utah State's kind of zony, funky defensive looks have really confused teams. But Nevada, Matt, number 2 in the country in 3-point shooting. They can really light it up over the top. It's not necessarily their go-to offensive style. They're not a huge 3-point attempt rate team, but if you force them to, they will make shots. They will go over the top. Is that going to be enough against this elite Utah State perimeter group with Falslev, with Martinez, Akano, all those guys playing well, and Drake Allen back in practice for them?
Yeah, I think Drake Allen's going to be key here. The guard spots where I worry about Utah State long-term throughout conference play. And not like Nevada has like crazy dynamic guards, but they have depth at every position, right? We talked about how much we love Tyler Rollison coming off the bench to change of pace. Kobe Sanders has been really effective as sort of that point forward spot. I like Nevada here. I know Utah State was awesome at home all non-con. I think we saw this story last year, though. Like they sort of inflated every metric in the market, dominating teams at home in non-con. Yeah, they've had some good neutral site efforts as well. I'm not saying they're a fraud, Ky, but in terms of the value meter, certainly more on the sell side than the buy side for me. I think Nevada is a good spot, a cheaper price to back them. And they're going to be angry off the Colorado State loss to open conference play, too.
Yeah, and a tough spot for Utah. By the way, Utah State, a very strong effort on the road against St. Mary's, beating St. Mary's on the road. Got to tip your cap to
Is
that
St.
one.
Mary's broken?
No, I don't think they are. I think Utah State's a really good team. I think Nevada's really good too, though. And this is a tough spot for Utah State coming off the San Diego State game, right? Double road games against arguably the top two teams in the conference. You could definitely put Nevada right there with the other 3 or 4 teams at the top of the league. I like Nevada here. The positional size is huge for me. I still think this team is very good. They've taken a little bit of a step back since their hot start to the year, but I expect them to fully come back to form in conference play. Still a big believer in their experience, top 10 in experience, top 10 in height. I think that goes a long way. So Nevada for me in this game.
Yeah, I like Nevada too. I actually, as we talked through it, liked it more and more. I think I came into recording this like, I'm not sure if I want to bet that, but they did lose that home opener in league play to Colorado State. Now we get Utah State here, a team, as Matt said, I think is a little bit inflated. Like Nevada deflated itself with some of those, Loyola Marymount loss, Washington State loss at home. They just got in a weird funk, but then they got a little bit of a spark from Rollison off the bench. He had a couple really good games. He was really good against South Dakota State.
Awesome.
Propelled them the game. They kind of struggled in the first half and then hit the turbocharge button in the second half. I think maybe that's eventually what we'll start to see out of them. Again, I bet them preseason to win the Mountain West at a nice number. I'm hoping they start to trend up here. It's much needed for them. Okay, next segment, the live dogs of the week. 2 weeks ago, we had Drake. It was, barely a dog. I think they were +2 on the KenPom line when we discussed it. That game ended up being +1 or pick 'em or so. And then South Alabama covered but did not win. James Madison got blasted. So we'll aim to do better here. But this first one I think is really intriguing, guys. Columbia +11 at Rutgers. Scarlet Knights just haven't been all that great, even with all that talent. Steve Peichel has not fully optimized them yet. And Columbia is mega experienced, number 2 in minutes continuity in the country. Can they go into the rack, Matthew, and knock off Rutgers?
I kind of think they can. I feel just the fact that they proved to themselves that they could beat a legit power conference caliber talent team at Villanova. I know Villanova is, debatably not as respected as very Jekyll and Heidi as we've seen as a favorite here. But yeah, Rutgers it's just a different. I like Villanova. I guess they are vulnerable because they're younger this year, Ky, right? Like I think we've seen them sort of play with their food against teams they probably should beat handily. I think those freshmen, the talent will play up against some of the best teams in the Big Ten, but I could see a real dicey effort here, and they don't have the same physical punch in the paint to really, I think, exert their will against Columbia. So this is one I actually really like. I think this is like the one I really circled for the week upcoming, honestly. And obviously Monday it fits nicely with our schedule. So yeah, I like this one, Jim.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know if I'll take him on the money line, but I think Columbia covers double digits. You mentioned the Villanova game. They've proven they can beat top teams. I was wondering, where's Columbia been? Before that game against Fairfield on Saturday, they had a 21-game break and a 24-game break from D1 competition. So Columbia may be a little bit rusty. It's good they get that warm-up game out of the way before they go to Rutgers on Monday. I do like them. I think any team that can pass the ball, move the way they do, and shoot the way they do has a chance at pulling an upset or at least hanging with competition. Now, the defense, they give up a lot athletically, but maybe the experience, the coaching, I think Angles is a good coach. I know they've not had the best records at Columbia, but it's a tough place to win. I think that really helps them probably put up some opposition on the defensive end. So I do think I'll be on them as a dog, not quite money line.
I do like, Ky, to your point that they got that game in yesterday, coming off that huge break. I looked at like all their historical layoffs because the Ivies always have super long layoffs typically. It's not been great for Columbia, honestly. So that's why I like the money line angle here more than the spread, frankly, because I think this is a volatile type of game where you don't know what you're going to get from Columbia. Even though they did play over the weekend, it's still sort of coming off a abnormal interruption in their schedule. But again, the minutes continuity should help. Second at minutes continuity last year, second at minutes continuity this season. So I got to think that's going to only help them.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to highlight, Matt. Just kind of being the same team, being older, it's probably tougher as a younger team to come off that long break and keep the same kind of focus. higher variance game you hope for. They scored 1.3 points per possession against Villanova. And Rutgers defense is not even top 100. This is not your standard Steve Peichel lock down the paint. It's younger. They're trying to play a little more spread out offensively, which means they have less size. Obole has not been the Omori replacement in the paint that they're hoping for. I think they're a little bit vulnerable to that Columbia continuity. And if they see blood in the water against, it's not quite Big Brother. It's a New Jersey team versus a New York team, but I think there's going to be a little added focus there for Columbia and potentially can get home there on the money line. A couple others I want to throw at you. Feel free to pick one, Ky, and tell me which one you like best. I can't quit Cal Baptist. They're a 5-point home dog versus Irvine on Monday. On Tuesday, got UAB +9 at North Texas, opening American play. Providence is +6 as a home dog against Marquette. And Seton Hall, a +12 road dog at Xavier now without Zach Freemantle. We like Shaheen Holloway as an underdog. Any of those really jump out at you, Mr. McKeon?
Yeah, Seton Hall for me. Not the best team. In fact, probably the worst team in the Big East right now. But they're going to be a tough dog every single time they come out as a significant underdog. You saw them hang in there, scrap in there, somehow cover against Georgetown with that short spread. I think it was 3.5. I think it's a double-digit dog. Absolutely. That's a bet for me. They're just hard to blow out. They play so physical, so tough. It kind of wears you down over the course of the game. Now, of course, the worry is they just can't hit shots. They can't score, period. And Xavier stretches it out over the full 40 minutes. And I do like the way Xavier looks, by the way, without Freemantle. I've been impressed by how their guards have stepped up. I believe they're 2-0 covering games after he's gone down. But it's a different sort of dynamic, Matt. It's not Xavier being a plucky dog. It's Xavier being a significant favorite over a team that's, once again, incredibly physical, incredibly built to be a good underdog.
Yeah, I agree. I actually almost lean Seton Hall because of what you just mentioned there at the end. I'm not touching this game. I certainly, Seton Hall is not exactly a fun. The vibe meter around Seton Hall not exactly warm and fuzzy right now. I'm going to stay away here, Jim. Like I said, I think Ky has the best points there about I just don't know if while we like this new Xavier team, do we like them beating a conference team who knows their stuff pretty well by double digits? I just don't, especially against Shock.
Then Matt, who else do you like of that group? If anybody, you have the option here. You're not stuck with just the Seton Hall game. I personally like the Pirates. I think, as Ky mentioned, they're going to be awesome as an underdog in that conference. They're just frustrating because they're 357th in free throw percentage, 350th in 2-point percentage, and they turn it over. So the offense can make you tear your hair out, but they're a top 40 defense and they're really well coached. So I think the dog spot. Matt, I like UAB. And
UAB is the best of the bunch. I like two from your batch here, and it's Columbia and UAB. UAB by a pretty substantial margin.
Yeah, I don't think the spread will be 9, as Ken Palm indicates. It's going to be a low possession game with the way North Texas slows things down, but you can make a very cogent argument that UAB is the more talented team. And just reverting to preseason expectations, another team will kind of mention in the spotlight section later, they were a top 2 team coming into the year in this conference, have been underperforming, but Ky, with their physicality up front, I think Tyron Moore is hopefully starting to play a little better. He's gotten a little bit more of a momentum going in his shot from beyond the arc, and they need him. I'm not expecting North Texas to win by double digits, so give me anything 7 or less. I'm happy to take UAB.
Yeah, I've been burned a lot this year on UAB, but I think this is where conference plays where they get back. I like to do the exercise of what would I have made this game preseason, especially at the beginning of conference play. 9, no chance. It would have been probably close to a pick. Maybe you'd be a slight underdog if you were high on North Texas. Maybe you'd be a slight favorite if you were really high on UAB. So this many points is staggering, would be staggering in the preseason. I do like the Blazers here.
I do too. I mean, they played well the last 2 years at the Super Pit. I don't know what it is. I just feel like they have the high level individual talent and shot making that you sometimes need to loosen up North Texas defense. Like, it's just really hard to truly out execute North Texas. Like, you got to have some guys who are just like, great offense beats great defense on some possessions. And with Jelly Walker, and with some of the shot makers they've had, I just think that's helped them. Do they have that guy this season? Right? Are they gonna have to play too much through the post? And I just think they've been so jump shot reliant. That's what's hurt them to this point. But that it could actually be a blessing in disguise in this matchup, right? Especially if you get a good value. I'm hoping to get like plus 300 to better, 3 to 1. My gut tells me to be like 2.5 to 1 is your money line price when the dust settles.
All right, Matty money lines going for the Blazers. I would probably just bet the spread there. Maybe not quite live for me, but yeah, they're the talent level. I think is just it's worth noting. Providence, I can't quite get there just because they don't know what they're getting from Bryce Hopkins. The coaching edge is so stark towards Marquette. I'm not gonna touch the Friars, despite the dunk, the amp being a terrific home environment. And I will debate Cal Baptist. I haven't decided for sure if I'm going to be on board there. I think it's a weird spot for Irvine, going to a kind of remote part of LA up to Riverside area and playing that road game before league play starts. But I'm not going to lock that one in quite yet. Okay, let's go to favorites, the overdogs, boys. We had Texas Tech and East Carolina covering 2 weeks ago, and UTEP did not. Monday, I love Vanderbilt. I think they are going to absolutely blast New Orleans. This is a weird schedule spot for New Orleans, playing conference play on Saturday. 48 hours later, going to an odd gym environment. Vandy, team that recently has destroyed bad competition. Its last 3 or 4 bye games is complete blowouts. I don't see why New Orleans cares about this game, Kai, so I'm going to take the Commodores.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. You just hope that Vanderbilt gets up for it as well. To your point, they just beat Citadel by 52. That was not a typo, a speako. They won by 52. They beat P by 30, and it wasn't even that close. So yeah, like you said, they have proven that they can double over competition. A couple teams have scared them at home. So again, it's up to Vanderbilt's motivation. They do have conference play on the horizon as well. But they do have several days break afterwards. Like this game is Monday. Their next game's not till that Saturday. So I think plenty of time to regroup and maybe not quite think about that game on the forefront. Focus on getting right after the break and pounding New Orleans. I do like Vanderbilt here.
I do too, Jim. The Kentucky one, not to jump the gun to your next one, but
Jump it, baby.
I like that one a lot more, actually. Playing Brown, who just played at KU. KU handled the most of the game. Brown kept it competitive for a little bit because they made some crazy tough shots early. Brown doesn't really have depth, nor do they have size. And that's what concerns me in this matchup. I just think that even though, I don't know how to handicap the fact that they just lost at Kansas by 24. Like, are they going to be better in this
They
game?
lost
Or are
by
they
34. They kept it close for a while
sorry,
and
I can't
still
do math.
lost by 34. Yeah.
So I think maybe that's just sort of we see a repeat movie here. I don't think there's like a bounce back against another non-important bye game. Yeah, you're going to Rupp. The kids are going to care about that. It's a cool experience. But, when you're down 15 and, the Pope offense is flying all over the place. They got threes raining. You got Amari Williams doing his thing inside. I just think there's a pretty easy white flag that comes out of the back pocket about halfway through the second half. And Mark Pope in bye games, Jim, not usually a pretty good investment.
Yeah, usually a terrific investment. They had the one Colgate dud early in December, but to start the year, Wright State, Bucknell, Lipscomb, Jackson State, I mean, they blasted these teams. I think we see that again because they are awful loss. I know they've got maybe look ahead in air quotes to Florida to start SEC play, but I think coming off a loss means you're going to get a focused Kentucky team. Should get a fully healthy Lamont Butler with 10 days off. He was kind of ailing with the ankle. I'm very strong on that one too, Matt. It's 19 per KenPom. What would you lay up to? Because I imagine this will be like 22.
I think 23, 24 is getting a little bit high. I think 23 is like, you don't want to pay anything more than I don't know, like a 20% premium on a big favorite. But I think that's like where I draw the line in the sand, 23, 24.
It's fun with analytics, right? Because Kentucky dropped 15 spots in KenPom after the Ohio State game.
Right.
So do you believe if they were still 11, this spread would be probably closer to 25, right? On KenPom, they're now 26 instead. Who do you stick with Kentucky as a top 10 team? I still think they have that level in them, especially with a healthy Butler, but the market probably does too. I do expect this game to be closer to 23, 24 when it's all said and done.
I think I'd lay up to 25.
I
just
would
think
too.
Kentucky is a ticking time bomb against bye game teams off a loss. I think they demolish them. So I will likely be backing Big Blue Nation at whatever number the market throws at me, as long as it's not above 25. All right, guys, to our spots section. We didn't have any we adored 2 weeks ago, so we're just going to focus on this week. And really, to me, a lot of the best spots are on Monday rather than Tuesday. I'll kind of summarize what I was looking at in terms of spots, and you guys can jump in where needed. First, we got Nichols going to Seattle. Now, I think it's a decent spot for Nichols in the sense that Seattle just beat Washington. Big brother Washington in city. rivalry game, kind of ran them off the court for most of the second half. Now maybe a little bit of a letdown with an odd Southland team coming. Unfortunately, it's not a great travel spot for Nichols on the other side, so that's getting me a little bit hesitant there. And you've got a couple teams coming back from the Diamond Head Classic over Christmas in Hawaii. Nebraska won it. Now they're back home hosting the best team in the SWAC, Southern, before Big Ten play starts. I think it's a home run spot for Southern, getting 20 plus points. We'll see what that number is. And also Portland getting 20 against Oregon State, the other finalist of Diamond Head. Obviously not as far a travel going to Portland versus going to the Heartland in Lincoln. But again, early league play, I think you get a little bit of a trend up performance from Portland. That helps with Oregon State coming back from the island. And then, Matt, two travel ones to point out. Grand Canyon, -10. Why is Bryant going all the way across the country to Phoenix for a one-off game? I don't get it. And FIU, -4. I don't love FIU, but why is Utah Tech flying from the mountains to South Beach for a one-off game before WAC play starts? Very confusing. Matthew, what do you like of this spot section that I have highlighted?
I like FIU quite a bit. I remember I bet the other side because this is a return game. So FIU went to St. George, Utah, right? St. George, Dixieland, the artist formerly known as Dixie State. Utah Tech won 96-92, 88 possession affair in overtime. So skew that number. But I think this game is absolutely laced with just speed and pace and chaos. All-time live betting opportunity game. I think FIU wins that pretty handily. I just think that their chaos is going to play better at home against than Utah Tech's. I mean, FIU's home road split's been pretty stark the last few years, which doesn't really make sense. It's like in Miami, it's not like a great home crowd, but they do seem to play better at home, and I just kind of buy it in this spot here. Why does Utah Tech care? They don't care.
It's because they got that weird court, Matt, with the oceanfront
and the
beach
palm
on
trees
one
and stuff.
sideline.
Yeah.
It looks really weird. Yeah.
Boy, Jim, I like almost all of these. I don't like Nichols, so throw Nichols out for me, but I love Southern. Yeah, we know the Maui trend, right? Teams coming back from Maui have issues in their first game back, so why not Diamond Head? Why not use the same logic there? It's a lot of points, and yeah, why does Nebraska care about a SWAC team? They're riding high, right, into Big Ten play. Tournament resume looks awesome right now. They're resting on their laurels maybe a little bit. And Portland, hey, anytime you get 20 points in a conference game, I'm probably going to take that unless it's last year's DePaul team in Big East. That's just so many points to lay in what usually, especially early on, results in a higher level of effort, I would say, especially from the dog, trying to get back a rejuvenized sort of feeling heading into conference like we've talked about throughout this show. And yeah, the travel spots, Bryant to Grand Canyon, Utah Tech to FIU, I'm buying both of those as well. So a very active section for me on this pod.
Good. Get in on the spots, boys. I love to hear that. Yeah, 20 points conference game. You think about it like if the dog gets down 15, are they going to roll over and lose by 30? Or are they going to try to fight back, get back in the game, cut it to less than 10? I think in a early league game like this is Oregon State's first conference game, Portland's second. I think you get a little more of a game effort from the Pilots. It's down the dog days of the season in February. Maybe there's a little more quit effect, but I definitely think Portland competes. And Southern, man, yeah, I love that spot. That is brutal for Nebraska. Post Island, feeling good, and then Big Ten play on the horizon. And you have to have the super feisty SWAC squad. This isn't like a bottom 10 SWAC team coming to town. This is a good Southern team, well coached. I think they compete. And of course, Southern probably wants to just get to SWAC play. They played a world tour like every SWAC team has. But once they feel a little chance of being in the game, I think that kind of lights the fire and keeps them in it the whole way. All right, to the trash section. We didn't have anything we loved 2 weeks ago, the last time we discussed this, but I love a trashy game this week, guys. So I'm going to highlight Morehead State going to Southern Indiana. It's two teams outside the top 280 of Ken Pom, most probably not even glancing at this game as they handicap. But it's a early league game. I think Morehead State's a little undervalued analytically because Deontay Miles missed time, their former Xavier center, and he's back. Big time impact as a rim protector, interior scorer, just a presence. And then matchup lens here. Morehead State, 17th in the country in free throw rate. They love to get to the line. They love to draw contact. Southern Indiana, 296th in defensive free throw rate. So it sounds like to me we're going to get a lot of Morehead State Eagle free throw attempts here. Ky, can I interest you in dumpster diving with me, or are you going to just let me play in the trash myself?
This one's very conflicting to me. I thought Miles meant a lot too, but gosh, they played really well without him. And with him in the lineup, they kind of got blown out a few times. They didn't have great efforts. The Martin game they won was without Miles. He didn't do much in the Tennessee State game, but I agree he's important. I think Moorhead might be a little undervalued. Southern Indiana, though, is a team I'm trying to figure out. They just got blown out by Tennessee Martin. They were impressive in the non-con. I don't think they're 320th right now. They dropped 50 spots after that Martin loss, so I think they might be actually turned to a little bit undervalued. And gosh, them winless right now in the OVC play is high motivation for them.
They're not
I
winless.
think.
They're not winless.
Oh,
they beat Tennessee
winless.
State, so they're 1-1.
Oh, I forgot. Sorry. They haven't covered a game. I was on Tennessee State.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Not that they give a shit about covering games, but
They
haven't
should.
looked great in OVC play so far. I kind of lean towards them in a short spread against Moorhead, actually, in the trash game.
No.
Yeah.
Oh no, Matt, where are you at? You decide the trash for us.
I'm not I'm going to be on the fence per usual here. The rotation inconsistency with USI has been annoying to track. Like the OVC is a tough league to track in general. And so when you're trying to get a read on a volatile team within a volatile league in a volatile context, how many times can you say volatile 10 times fast? I'm just not touching. I'm really not. Sorry. The OVC is a compilation of trash, but I don't think any one side has an edge in the battle of trash, especially with these two teams. Although I do think that Moorhead's front line will be pretty dominant with Miles back alongside Kenny White if he can get healthy.
Very confused why the OVC is a main board conference.
I've always agreed. I feel like them and the bookmakers should
leagues.
throw them out and insert ASUN or
Well, when Belmont and Murray were there, I guess they were like, "Oh, this league rocks,"
Yeah, pretty much
kind of kept it. Yeah.
But yeah, to Matt's point, Big South is the 16th best league in the country per KenPom, and it's extra board, whereas the OVC is 28th. I think we can put the OVC on the extra board. I wouldn't feel too sad about losing that. All right, quick spotlight section, boys. I mentioned it earlier. These are teams similar to UAB, similar to Kansas State, that get to hit a reset button. A disappointment so far this year. Maybe you get them returning to form. You catch a little bit of undervalued. So I'm just going to throw out a couple examples. Teams that I think are maybe worth looking at. Arizona, -11. Now, they haven't tumbled too far in KenPom. They're still inside the top 25 or right there, but they've lost a lot of big games. Still think this team's really talented, and they get TCU coming to town, who is shorthanded with no Frankie Collins. Matt, TCU has also not done the Arizona road trip. They haven't been to McKale Center because this is the new Big 12 squad. Any interest in the Wildcats there?
Yeah, a lot of interest. I think Arizona's going to be fine. People think they're like done this year. I think they're not as good as last year, but they got a lot of room to improve, and I think their guards are much better than TCU, especially without Frankie Collins now. I think TCU is going to have to really piece it together. We'll see what Dixon does, right? Maybe we see like an old Pitt type Dixon team emerge from the ashes. I don't know though. I'm kind of out on this TCU version.
Yep. And Ky, you get my question about plugging your nose with Wake Forest. Oh boy, team we thought could be number 2 in the ACC coming into the year, like guaranteed at large. You get Hunter Salas back out of the NBA draft. And they have tumbled outside the top 100 at KenPom. Really, really struggled. Now they're getting points at Syracuse on Tuesday. I think Syracuse is bad. I am going to go to the well one more time at least with Wake Forest here. I have them favored on the road.
I'm going Wake as well, Jim. Wake Forest has been one of the most disappointing teams I've watched all season. Their offense is truly horrific. It's like around a 200th in KenPom, which is just staggering. But Syracuse might be even worse. And watching them play against Maryland was one of the worst efforts I've ever seen from a power conference team. Doesn't mean they won't get back here for ACC play. We've talked about it, the bounce backs, but man, Wake is hungry too, man. And they're not dead. They're not dead for the tournament. If they perform well in the ACC, there's a path for them to still make it to the dance. So high effort, I think, for Wake Forest. I do like them here.
Yeah, as bad as Wake Forest has been analytically, they have avoided any terrible losses, nothing in Q3 or Q4, and they got a win over Michigan that's probably going to age well. It was in Charlotte. If the committee counts it as neutral, that's going to be Q1. So it's kind of wild how much their tourney resume is different than their actual on-court results. But yeah, I'm going to go back to the well with Wake. 3 other teams, I think UNLV has a chance to maybe re-raise its ceiling. They've kind of struggled in non-conference play. We saw the potential with the near win at Dayton. I think there's something there under the hood, but they've had some injuries. UMass has been a complete nightmare. They're plus 12 at St. Joe's on Tuesday. I don't love laying points with the Hawks, and UMass could potentially be better than they have shown. And staying in the A10, Matthias, SLU, the Billikens, they've still got injury questions. They were shorthanded against Walla Walla on Saturday, but I think A10 play is where they actually start to rise up, maybe get a little bit more cohesion, despite the fact that they are going to be injured long term and only have like 8 scholarship players. I can't abide by them as a dog at Fordham. I will have this game much more like SLU minus 3 or 4.
Did you say Walla Walla?
Yeah.
William Woods.
William Woods. I don't know why I had the WW in my head. I was just thinking
Yeah.
WW. Thank you, Ky. Good correction.
Sorry, I agree. I'm looking at Fordham's won 5 in a row, by the way. Again, mostly against bad teams, but just notable. I kind of like this Fordham team coming into the year. They also lost at home to a lot of like their home court advantage. As much as we like to hype up Rose Hill Gym being like a cool environment, like they lost at home a ton last year, right? Lost at home to Cornell, NJIT, Tulane, Central Connecticut, in non-con, and then lost at home to LaSalle, Davidson, Loyola, Richmond, VCU. I mean, they lost 8 home games in conference last year. So yeah, I like SLU. I don't think it's like a major home court advantage. You could almost argue it's like no home court with the way SLU's been playing, with how they kind of, I think, need to flip a switch for conference play, right? To kind of put the non-con to bed. We'll see if they have enough bodies to feel the apt rotation, but they're not going to be bothered by, Fordham's pressure. I think they're better than Fordham, and that's probably a stubborn, outdated take that's too rooted in priors. But I'm with you. I'll go back to the well.
That's the point of the spotlight, baby. Let your priors ride in the start of league play and give it one more shot to see if maybe you could be correct. But yeah, Fordham's already lost at home to Drexel this year, a team outside the top 170. So it's not like they've suddenly rediscovered that home court advantage. Matt, I think Matt's onto something there. All right, fellas, that is it for the episode. Let's end with a quick recap of what we actually like and want to lock in. I will start. I got that Southern and Portland twofer in the spot section. They're both getting 20 per Ken Palm. I'd probably take them both down to 17.5 or so. Moorhead +1 in the trash. I'm going to lay it with Vandy and Kentucky, even well above what the current Ken Palm spreads are. Matt did talk me into Nevada. Matt and Ky both talked me into Nevada -3 against Utah State. And then in the kind of spots / reawakening teams, UAB, Wake Forest, and SLU. All right, let's get excited about betting some. Those are kind of trash themselves. Kyle, go to you.
Yeah, I'm going to bet the entire board. I am going to take Wake. I'm going to take SLU because I can't quit SLU either. Good spot for them. K-State, perfect spot in my opinion. K-State gets it done. I wouldn't mind sprinkling the money line if it was worth it, price-wise. UAB spreads nuts. I love North Texas, but taking UAB, I think Seton Hall sticks within double digits to Xavier. I agree with Jim on the Southern spot. Great spot. I do think Vanderbilt, Kentucky, the SEC duo blows out their competition. And yeah, the travel spots, man. FIU hosting Utah Tech, Grand Canyon hosting
George Canyon.
George Canyon hosting Bryant. I love those spots as well. So big slate for me on
Spray
Monday,
the board,
Tuesday.
folks. Matt
Spray the board.
Matt will give you his cautionary. Be careful the week after
It's
Christmas.
only 2 weeks. Last year was a bloodbath for me. I'm just absolutely gonna. I'm going to be very transparent. Bloodbath the 7 to 8 days after Christmas. So with that said, as the confidence is oozing to the microphone, love UAB as we discussed. Probably my favorite of the bunch, and I will take Columbia as well. I'm going to do both those money line. I think I'm going to trust the variance on both, and then the other 3 for me, tighter card. I'm sorry, 4. Nevada, as Shim mentioned, Kentucky against Brown to lay the wood, SLU at Fordham, and then I didn't mention my take on the UMass at St. Joe game. Yeah, I think again, just Billy Lang as a largest favorite. Don't see, you could see them maybe not playing up to snuff here. And UMass played really well against Arizona State for like the first 30 minutes. I think they do have talent. They've been a UMass this season, but could see them rising here against the Fighting Billy Langs and co. So I'm going to stubbornly keep fading Billy Lang as a favorite, and hopefully Frank Martin gets me there. That's a spread bet, not a money line bet.
Love it. I'm actually going to throw one last one in that didn't fit in any section, quite honestly. Maybe could have fit in Overdog, but BYU, home against Arizona State, elevation. I don't trust ASU as we get into league play. I think maybe they revert downwards a little bit towards expectations, and hoping BYU gets Yegor Demon back. That would be massive. The potential lottery pick that has missed the last few for the Cougars. All right, throwing that one in there as well. That wraps it up for us here on BBOC. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you catch all the shows here on this feed. Catch the CFP previews, the bowl previews. They're churning those out as well. But also, bet some basketball while you're at it. So happy betting. Happy New Year. We'll see you on the 2025 side of things. Cheers.